You know what's worse than losing one star safety? Losing two on the same day. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We're available on all platforms, including YouTube and wherever you may get your podcast. If this is your first time listening to our show, make sure you like and subscribe. We'd love to interact with all of you in the YouTube comments, as well as on various social media platforms. You can follow our show at Locked On Utes on X. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. You can go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy. PrizePicks. My name is JT Wistrcill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. And on today's show, we have to talk about the departure of not just two safeties, but two of the best players on this Utah roster, as both are NFL bound, in Cole Bishop and Sione Vaki. Each of them are going to get their own segment, and we'll be discussing just what their departures mean for this team. I mean, this is a tough blow. First of all, Cole and Sione, congrats to them. They obviously got great NFL feedback in order to do this, and that's what this is for, right? You go to college so you can ball out at the school you're at. You hopefully win in your school. Both these guys, of course, winning Pac-12 championships, and with Cole's case, he won two of them, with Sione first serving his mission, then coming over and joining the team last season. But both these guys are Pac-12 champions. Both these guys played in a Rose Bowl, had incredible collegiate careers. Both of them absolutely balled out, and obviously got really good NFL feedback. I wasn't sure how the feedback would be on either one. We heard rumors about, Sione Vaki, the BYU stuff. It's like, oh, is there like recruiting stuff involved with him? And then boom, it's an NFL thing, which obviously Sione was being highly sought after. So it makes sense why you see that the NFL also wanted him. And the same thing with Cole Bishop, just two tremendous players. And it was actually funny when you see, when I saw Cole declared, I'm like, oh, that's a really tough blow for this defense, but it's okay. Because Teo Johnson, I feel like I like what he showed, just the flashes he showed at times, some mistakes, but the flashes he showed as a free safety. And, Utah basically was playing with both strong safeties because those guys are both just so good at what they do in Sione Vaki and Cole Bishop. You wanted them both on the field as much as you could put them there. So I was like, all right, and, Sione can just play in the box pretty much full time last year or next year. He'll drop back a little bit, of course, but I'm like, this is okay for Utah. And then, of course, Sione ends up departing later that day. And I'm like, oh, that's not good as it pertains to Utah football. Once again, extremely excited for these guys. This is what it's all about. And I'm excited to watch both shine in the NFL. I think both are going to be tremendous players in the NFL. I just, because of how long it took this announcement, which obviously they were both wrestling with it, what to do and make that decision, I assume that they didn't get the feedback that they wanted. But it sounds like they got great feedback. And then just based on the fact that they declared, and then we're really mulling over, like, do I really want to leave Utah? And that was a decision. Once again, props to those guys. We'll talk about Sione more in the second segment, but first, I thought we would dive fully into Cole Bishop, and what a tremendous player. Him and Vaki, one thing they both just did an outstanding job of is making tackles in the open field. It's an extremely underrated and difficult task, but I think it might be both of their best skill sets, playing in the box, stopping the run, all those things like that. But particularly like on those outside runs, pitch plays, stuff like that, or just wide receiver screens, the same kind of thing, the hitches, everything in that realm. These guys do such a great job of getting past those blockers, getting off of blocks, and wrapping up elusive players. They've done it time and time again throughout the season. And Cole Bishop's been doing it at Utah for 3 years now. He's made an impact since his freshman season. In fact, if you go all the way back to his freshman season, played in 10 games on the season, actually started the final 6. He was all Pac-12 honorable mention. If it wasn't for how dominant Junior Tafuna was against Oregon and just the way he came on down the stretch, he actually might have won Pac-12 Freshman of the Year, but credit to Tafuna for being a monster. I mean, ever since, obviously, he's been awesome. But he's a guy too, had 54 tackles his first year, 9 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 5 pass breakups, and actually recorded a career high 8 tackles. He did it twice, once versus Oregon, and then and the other time being against Ohio State. So 2 of the top teams in college football that season. And yes, I know Oregon fell off, but just a tremendous career for Bishop. Like, that's what he just did as a freshman. He was a freshman and played, and he didn't stand out. Like at times this year, we saw the freshmen, whether it was Mikey Matthews, disappear from games, or Spencer Fano struggle at times. And some of those struggles were on the coaches, not always putting those guys in a position to succeed. But we saw good moments and bad moments for them. With the first season for Cole Bishop, the good absolutely outweighed anything else. Give him credit for coming in here, buying in early, and shining his first season. Once again, career high tackles against Oregon in the Pac-12 championship, and then against Ohio State. And Ohio State, that's CJ Stroud, that's Jackson Smith and Jigba. And we know how many tackles he had to make because we had Kai Bernard running around out there at cornerback, and the Utah secondary was just extremely depleted in that game. But Bishop just looked like he belonged from the moment he stepped into the game for Utah in those 10 games, especially those final 6 starts. And then last year was no different. He appeared in all 14 games, technically starting 13 of them. Starts like that can always be funny, right? Because like he played more minutes than probably the guy who even started the game. That's just me reading off the top of this. All these numbers come in courtesy of the Utah Athletics website. But he was once again all Pac-12 honorable mention, kind of like he was the previous season. But he led the team in tackles. That's incredible. It also spoke to, Karene Reed still growing. Mahmoud Diabate, haven't said his name in a while, struggling at times, Lander struggling at times at a freshman. But give Bishop a lot of credit. That's where, once again, his ability to make those tackles in space was so key to Utah. He was a sensational tackler. He also had 6 tackles for loss. The tackles for loss, something that defined his time at Utah. He also led Utah in tackles, had 83, and had the most tackles for loss of 6 with anyone in the secondary. Also defended a couple of passes. And we know what an exceptional, I've gone way too long without mentioning this about Cole Bishop, what a tremendous blitzer that he was. I mean, one of the best that I've seen at the collegiate level in a while. That's why I think he's going to do really well out in the NFL too. I'm a huge Vikings fan, right? I don't want to talk about the Vikings anymore after that. So none of you better comment about my Vikings with the way that putrid game looked today. Anyways, but diving back into this one, this is something where he is just such a tremendous blitzer, a tremendous athlete, a tremendous guy who just moves his feet so well in space. As I said, he can cover, do things. He's not the greatest coverage safety, hence even being more naturally a strong safety, but he did make timely stops throughout the season. And that was just what he did last year, helping Utah go back to back. Once again, crucial in all of Utah's efforts. The last 2 years going back to back, and this year, look, Utah was going to be very hard pressed to win a Pac-12 championship, of course, without having a guy like Cam Rising, Brant Keithy, just to name some of the injuries that we ended up seeing this Utah team suffer throughout the season. But this is the thing with Bishop, where even this year, just tremendous. I mean, Utah had one of the best defenses in college football, I think, overall. The numbers were hurt a little bit when you look at the end, like why'd they get decimated by Arizona? And why did they even let Colorado, a backup quarterback, make plays? But once Cole Bishop didn't even play in the Arizona games, that shows you that's another area where it's like, how big of an impact does he make? Sione Vaki, another guy, played in the Arizona game, but was severely banged up too. So clearly not himself. But yeah, just tremendous seasons from Cole. He would have to do things a little different, dropping back a little more in coverage. But I mean, he's a guy who played in 11 regular season games, 10 starts overall. Once again, pretty much started every game for Utah he could. His 9.5 third down stops were the most on the team. Great stat by Utah there. Also had 60 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks. So just continuing to be a game changer. Once again, had to play a little outside the box, but he's a guy that, based on the feedback he got, I assume he's going to go in the 2nd or 3rd round of the NFL. He's a good athlete who tackles well in space, and he needs to get a little bit stronger, but his size really didn't affect him that much at the collegiate level. So maybe a little faster, but those are minute things that Cole Bishop needs to improve on in order to be a star at the NFL. And they're things I think he is going to improve on. I think he will be a long tenured safety for an NFL team. I already brought up Harrison Smith once for that blitz ability and just the timely big plays, even a stat like, now there was the third down stats was a good one that Utah Athletics had, but there was other moments where like, man, Cole Bishop just saved a touchdown. How many times do we say that over the last 3 years? A large amount. So really tough to see Cole Bishop go on in terms of just how much we'll miss watching him at Rice-Eccles Stadium, but so excited for the opportunity as the NFL. Absolutely earned it, and he's going to crush it. And as we said off the top, he's not the only one going off to the NFL, as Sione Vaki is also bound for the 2024 NFL Draft. Have to talk about what his departure means to this Utah team and just how it affects both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively, Utah, because obviously both of these departures have a massive effect on this Utah team. We'll discuss we'll discuss Vaki's departure more in a moment, But first, I want to talk with you guys about our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Also, want to talk with you guys a little bit more about our friends at UCCU. Learn and Earn, the UCCU mobile banking app that pays your entire family to learn about money. Kids look to parents to become more financially literate, while parents, they don't always know the answers. Learn breaks down financial topics into fun, bite-sized educational games like quizzes and trivia. Every time a family member completes a topic, they earn points that can occur and can be redeemed for gift cards to stores like Amazon, Apple, Sephora, Walmart, Nike, and more. There is age-appropriate content for every member of the family who can compete against each other and track their progress on leaderboards. Learn and Earn is inside the UCCU mobile banking app, so you can play it anytime, anywhere. The more you play, the more you learn. And the more you learn, the more you earn. Learn and Earn, part of UCCU's award-winning Be Money Smart Youth Banking Program, helping kids, teens, and parents have fun while becoming more financially literate together. UCCU, love where you bank. Alrighty. Already got done talking about what a detrimental loss Cole Bishop was. Might as well dive into what a massive loss Sione Vaki was. And just another guy, a tremendous career at Utah, and what an impact in only 2 years, this year in particular. But he appeared in all 14 games, made 5 starts overall, but still had 41 tackles last year, 3.5 tackles for loss, which actually that surprised me. But when I really remember thinking like Sione Vaki could be a really good player for Utah last year, I thought he was good, but I didn't know he would be like the basic superstar he became in so many ways for them. And obviously never thought he'd be the do-it-all guy, because who would have predicted that? But was the USC game. That tackle he made in space against one of the Trojans, running backs or receivers, I can't remember, but it was a key third down. And at the time, they said the running back didn't go down, or there was whoever the pass catcher was, and he did. And it was a huge tackle, because it would have been like a 20-yard gain, I think, for the Trojans in that game when it was still in somewhat reach, I think, for USC. And Vaki made that play. And guys can make that play. You're like, okay, bookmark that. Let's see more. And he did make other nice plays throughout the season, but that was the one, just when I think about 2022 Sione Vaki, that's the one that stands out to me. And then, but who, once again, like as much as we thought Sione Vaki would be good last year, 41 tackles, 3.5 for loss, a forced fumble, 3 pass breakups, like really nice, great in coverage too. Was a guy we saw a lot playing in the slot in the coverage designation, but who would have guessed what he would do in 2023? I mean, I thought he'd be good, but I did not think he would end up being that good. Like we said, he would be breakout. And I thought he could potentially do what he did on defense, but for him to do what he did on both sides of the ball, I mean, it's just tremendous. He was the best. Travis Hunter was also really good, so I know it's tough. For my biased money of the multiple Utah logos that I currently have one on my shirt right now, and this is called Locked On Utes. Sione Vaki was the best two-way player in college football last year. And he made saw time at Wildcat quarterback, at running back, obviously all over the defensive field, primarily in the strong safety position. He was a 3-time selection to the Paul Honring Award weekly honor. Apologies if I mispronounced that. After excelling both at safety and running back, as we mentioned. And he had ranked 4th on the team, 51 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, tremendous, and 2 sacks also. And he might have led Utah in that statistic too. I don't know exactly where he ranked, but if it wasn't for Jonah Ellis being the dog that he was. Also for him, Taves tied 10th in the Pac-12 with 7.5 tackles for loss during conference play. Also had that interception against Florida and a couple pass breakups. So just a force for this team defensively. I already talked about it with Bishop too, but when I think of what makes Sione Vaki a game changer, it is above all else that ability to play in the box and make those tackles in space. He's not the biggest guy. He's lifted at 6 feet. And even with those, sometimes we know they pad the stats a little bit, right? So they raise those up a little, but I do think that he is just plays so much bigger than his size, hence why he's going to be well thought of after in the NFL, especially because how many athletes do you see like Sione Vaki on the football field? There are a lot of great athletic players in college football. Sione was one of the premier athletes for what he did, not just on the defensive side of the ball, but at running back, and not just running the ball in his hands, showing some touch with the hands as a receiver too. He tallied 42 carries, 317 yards, 2 touchdowns, also catching 11 passes for 203 yards and 3 scores. His game against USC first as a receiving back was incredible. I mean, what he did in that one, and what he did again in that one. Also mentioned his he had the 53-yard reception versus USC. Just so many moments. The 72-yard run against Cal. We had 15 carries for 158 yards and a score. Like I could go on with all the special moments. Also, remember the first time we saw him as a Wildcat was against Oregon State, and we thought like, oh, that was fun, but you got Nate Johnson, so keep him in there. But then we see that Sione Vaki's speed was just something you couldn't keep off the field. Hence why he excelled at running back. Even though, and Alex Grinch made a detrimental mistake by not deciding to look at him as a receiving back, because we saw him dust the Trojans a couple times in that game. And even, how about the cut he made on the second touchdown in that game? It's one of the best open field cuts I've seen in college football in a long time. And I already mentioned his skills and speed as a running back. He had the best breakaway speed on the team. Jaquindon was more the bulldozer and still had some good moments of speed. But overall, you could tell he got bigger and stronger. So he did lose some of the quickness. He was probably a little faster last year. I could be wrong on that. But Sione, I think he reached like 20 miles per hour at times on this season, probably even over that. Like, he was moving. And it was just so special to watch and see him just fly up and down the field. So that's where I was so impressed with Sione and felt like, wow, this is one of the most fun players to watch in college football because I don't know what he's going to do. He had, like I said, interception in the first game. And then by the end of the season, he has big runs, catching big passes, always was making big stops on third down, doing a good job getting through blocks. But Sione, just a tremendous player and one that Utah will really feel the loss of. He and Jonah Ellis were probably going to be the two best defenders on this Utah defense next year. You know, Corey Reed in the mix as well, but I would have said Ellis and Vaki kind of 1 and 2 in my opinion. Ellis probably won for what Ellis was basically the best pass rusher in college football. And I know he didn't win awards, but the injury obviously hurt him because he didn't get to play the final 2 games. And against a Arizona offensive line, that's okay. But I actually think their left tackle might have been better. So I'll give them a little bit of a bump. But Jonah got past everyone else. Probably would have gotten 1 in that game. And against the Buffs, very well could have gotten 2. Maybe they would have made such a point to game plan for him that he might have not. But something to keep in mind in general is just if Jonah had stayed healthy. He's awesome to see him traveling out to all these award shows, and we'll dive into all these awards these guys are earning eventually, but it's hard when there's so much NFL and transfer news going on to get to. And I also want to give at least a little bit of the shine to like the Utah men's basketball team we'll be talking about in a second. And tomorrow's show, we got to talk about the Utah women's basketball team. I know they lost to South Carolina, but that was a tremendous performance in game. So we're trying to get to everything. We still got to do recruiting talk. The offseason is not an offseason, basically, because there are a lot of content and talking points that to get through, especially when I try to keep these shows under that 25-minute mark, because there's no statistically, when we go past that mark, you guys are less likely to listen. Like, that's just a fact, even though I do enjoy going some longer ones sometimes. And you'll still get that, especially with we'll definitely be seeing some guests pop up on Locked On Utes here in the very near future again. So, but going back to Sione, his loss, crushing for the defense. That's where Nate Ritchie, the flashes he showed back in the 2020 season, maybe this was his year to kind of like get back and grow from that. But we'll have to wait and see. We saw Brandon Carlson, it took him a while to become the player he is today coming off his mission. Now, some guys like Sione Vaki, right? It took him, he was good last year and then great this year. Let's see if Nate Ritchie can be that next year. And he was okay this year. I think he can be better next year for sure. So that's where it's interesting there. On the other side of the ball, I expect Mekhi Bernard to try to fulfill a lot of the production. Although I'd be interested to know, like in a straight race, is Mekhi faster than Sione? That'd be an interesting one to see. But Mekhi, obviously, with better hands than Sione, will give him that for sure, a better route runner and still very quick and a phenomenal running back for all he's done for this Utah team. So that's where, Bernard being back will offset the loss a little bit. But yeah, just a tremendous player. Sione Vaki, one of the top two-way players in college football. For my money, the best two-way player in college football. What a sensational season and performance that he put on every time he stepped on the field, with the exception of that, in my opinion, being that Arizona game. And yeah, the Oregon game didn't go great for Utah either, and there were other moments like where you get beaten a play or two. But think about how good in totality the Utah defense was. Sione Vaki was key to that for what I mentioned, what his ability to do in coverage at times, but especially play in the box around the line of scrimmage, take on blockers, shed blockers, make tackles behind the line of scrimmage, and also just what he meant for this team offensively when they were struggling so much. In some ways, he did save Utah's season offensively. Without either of these guys, there's no way that Utah is even in the Pac-12 championship race for as long as they were this season. So we're going to dearly miss both of them. On tomorrow's show, I'm going to dive more into who I think can replace them, talk about some transfer portal targets. Utah did land 2 players I think they got, a recruit and a transfer portal player. So want to dive into both of those things on tomorrow's show. That will be what we dive into. But before we do get out of here, got to talk about what the Utah men's basketball team was able to do, beating undefeated and top 15 ranked BYU. I'm sure you guys really enjoyed me saying that, so I'll say it one more time. Undefeated and top 15 ranked BYU. So we're going to be diving into and discussing that glorious victory in one moment. But first, I want to talk to you about our friends at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. We're the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros, sharks, you can just pick more than or less than 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. With basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the special leagues, a league created specifically for those combo projections that include 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, you can do LeBron James plus Travis Kelce at 10.5 combo on 3-pointers and receptions. LeBron feeling great, obviously, after his bubble championship, the first whatever, and as for Travis Kelce, only had one of the greatest plays that I would have seen in a long time in the NFL take it away because Kadarius Toney once again made a costly mistake. Anywho, one of the other great things I love about PrizePicks is they even offer a real reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return the second, the player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sport platform with injury insurance policy. So make sure you guys head over to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Once again, you can use that code lockedoncollege, which is no capitals and all lowercase. And all right, that's the same thing. I'm sorry. And no spaces in between. So once again, Locked On College for a first deposit match up to $100. Once again, you can go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use that code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Alrighty, closing out here with the best. I said this on my Now yesterday. After sleeping on it, I still agree. I think this might be the best and most memorable win of Craig Smith's tenure so far. Yes, Utah beat an Arizona team that was ranked inside the top 5 a year ago. It was completely overshadowed by a team winning a Pac-12 championship. And the environment in the Huntsman wasn't the same. Like, this was more memorable. And I think this one will stick and resonate with fans for a long time. I think a lot of people have even kind of disregarded the Arizona one already. But when you can beat a rival like BYU, the rival in BYU, it's just, how do you, like I said, I just think the meaning and the emotion of that. When they're undefeated and inside the top 15, that's why I would say this is the top win for Craig Smith and company. And you know that you were getting BYU's best too, because they were an undefeated team. And give Utah a ton of credit. Held them to a season low 69 points, only allowed them to shoot 23% from the field, not even 40% from the field, even, while Utah shot 49% from the field, 30% from three. And, you know, it was a tough and physical game, right? Like, yes, Gabe Madsen shot it really well. He was 6 of 11, hit 5 threes. Man, what a sniper he's been for Utah this season. Also had 3 assists and 17 points. You know, Raleigh Worcester, what he continues to do is getting his teammates and putting them in positions, 8 assists. Look, not the greatest shooting game, but do you impact the game other ways? Raleigh Worcester did that. Then you talk about what Brandon Carlson did, a guy who threw up 15 points yesterday and just did it all, right? A steal. Didn't have any blocks, but made his presence felt. Speaking of blocks, how about Lawson Lovering registering 3 of them in 23 minutes? Insane. So Carlson, obviously, we weren't sure he was going to play, but as Coach Smith even said, no one was going to stop him from playing except for the doctors. And thankfully they gave him the go ahead. Then you have Kaba continuing to shine off the bench, but just really excited. This is a Utah team that is 7-2. They're 4-0 at home. That was BYU's first loss of the season, obviously their first loss on the road. So just great stuff for Utah. So impressed with Brandon Carlson's game. Obviously the ability to play next to a Lawson Lovering is tremendous. The versatility it allows for this Utah team. Get some rim protection and Lovering. Brandon Carlson, also Kaba. I like the depth, guys like Ben Carlson and Hunter Erickson capable of coming in, hitting shots. And Badgema, look, 1 of 3 for 3 in this game, but still just the spacing and how much, teams have to respect him. Another guy who can go off from distance, just like we witnessed Gabe Madsen do. All these guys are playing the best or some of the best ball of their career. And like even a guy like Kaba, right? Just really coming into his own and looks transformed this season. You love to see it. Utah takes care of BYU 73-69. I've seen some of the more wild Cougars fans in shambles. And yeah, you got to be fired up it's always a great day to be a Ute. Friday was not, because we lost both our guys, but Saturday was a lot better. And how can you not even be proud after Sunday too? I mean, Alyssa Peely throwing up 37 points. Yes, Utah loses 69-78 to 69, to South Carolina, but to go in a neutral site and in the Hall of Fame Women's Showcase, compete like that, have Peely ball out in a game where she's given up a lot of size as well. I was so impressed, and credit Coach Staley and her team for hanging on tough for the win. But Lynn Roberts, man, this squad has got some buy-in. You only get 2 points off your bench and you keep it that close still in this game. This was a tremendous career high performance from Alyssa Peely. 15 of 23 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3, 4 for 4 from the free throw line. I want to talk about that a little more tomorrow, but just so impressed with both the men's and women's teams right now. Even though the women's team and the men's team both do have those 2 losses, I think the basketball future for Utah basketball is still trending in the right direction. Yes, the Gianna Neepkins injury puts a lower ceiling on what I feel like Utah can do this season, but that's what also makes March great. You just never know. Hence why Utah, and just any given game, right? I mean, Utah almost beat South Carolina, who's 9-0 currently. Great stuff. I'm excited to see what happens next for the men and women's basketball team, and excited to see what Utah does to really try to fill the void of Sione Vaki and Cole Bishop. Both discussions that will be had this week on Locked On Utes. We look forward to having you along for the ride.